right, fellas, I'm glad we were all able to take the time out of our days to meet up and discuss something of the utmost importance. Ranking the modern Big Brother winners.
Yeah, I don't know whose idea it was to do this, but I'm only doing this to flex my BB knowledge on Joe.
Donald, you've got nothing on me, and you know it. The sole reason we're only doing the modern winners is because your picky ass refuses to watch any season that's not in HD.
Just because I haven't seen the older seasons doesn't make me any less of a fan. Besides, I religiously follow along with the current seasons and have listened to podcasts talking about all the old seasons, so I promise that my Big Brother knowledge is more than up to snuff, and my opinions will likely end up being way more reputable than any garbage that you come up with.
Oh, quit it, Donald. I've already taken a look at your notes, and I'm not going to take someone seriously who still refuses to accept the fact that Taylor deserved to win BB24.
Stop reading my notes and come up with something on your own for once, Sleepy Joe. And we'll talk about it more later, but you're damn right that I think Monty deserved to win over Taylor. Hell, there's a lot of players on this list that I don't think deserve to win, and you're about to hear me go to battle against them for the next half an hour.
All of these players won due to earning the majority of votes from the jury. I know winning the popular vote is a foreign concept to you, so I understand why you'd have such a problem with it.
Well, you know what? I'm sure if the jury allowed mail-in votes to count, then there'd be quite a few different winners on this list. I may not agree with some of the players that the jury chose to win, but at least this show stops the count when they should.
Okay, maybe I should just ring up the bushes and see if they would want to do this instead.
No, I'm sorry, Barack. We'll behave.
Yeah, keep simping Biden.
If you two can please stop yapping at one another, I can explain how this will work.
Fine, but only so I have more time to think of some good ones to use on Sleepy Joe later on.
Whatever makes you shut up. Anyways, the way that this works is that we'll start with the winner that we think is the worst out of this group, and then move our way up until we have a definitive ranking of the modern-day Big Brother winners. I think that's easy enough to understand, and before any of you say anything, I'm going to get started. Okay, starting from the bottom, when we're looking at the players on this list, I think it's pretty clear that the worst of the bunch is going to have to be Josh.
You know, Obama, I don't know how many times this is going to happen tonight, but I'm totally with you here. Josh is probably the most unexpected winner we've ever had, and if it wasn't for the jury making an egregiously corrupt decision, we could be talking about Paul, a.k.a. the best player to ever play Big Brother, as opposed to talking about this bumbling fool who somehow fell ass backwards into a win.
Trump, you have no idea how ironic that sounds coming from you. Back on topic, though, I find it to be pretty demoralizing that you are forgetting so many aspects of Josh's game. Yes, Josh was loud and brash. And yes, Josh didn't have the respect of many of the players. But Josh was basically the only player in Big Brother 19 to see through what Paul was doing and play it smart. We saw players like Jessica, Cody, and Mark see Paul's game for what it was. But they made the mistake of going head-to-head against Paul and losing. Josh, on the other hand, also recognized what Paul's game was. But instead of making that same mistake everyone else made, Josh played it smart and played into Paul's game and chose to use his goodbye messages as a way to secretly blow up everything that Paul had been working towards without ever being caught. It may not be as showy of a move compared to other winners' games, but it was the move that earned Josh the win, and it deserves some credit.
You bring up some good points here, but is that really enough justification to rank Josh any higher than the bottom tier?
Yeah, Sleepy Joe. Are you really going to try and argue that any of the other winners deserve to go below Josh?
No, guys, I guess you're right, but I'm only bowing out of this fight because I'm sure we've got a whole lot more coming ahead of us.
You got that right. I can't wait to disagree with more garbage takes like that all night long. Speaking of garbage, Joe, why don't you let us know who you have next?
No, now I'm self-conscious. Barack, can you kick us off?
Yeah, fine, whatever. Up next might have a little bit of contention with it, but I have Casey.
Okay, phew, that's who I was going to say.
God, Biden, you're such a wimp. And not only are you a wimp, but this take is awful. Casey steamrolled the endgame competitions like nobody ever has before, and she started at like the final fucking 10. Her hacker win saved her alliance, and from there she never let go of the gas pedal, winning 5 vetoes and 2 HOHs that carried Tyler's ass to the end. I was a big Tyler fan up until he started becoming a love-struck puppy and threw away his game because he was too weak. So I was happy to see the jury award Casey the well-deserved victory over Tyler. For the record, though, he did eventually win me back in All-Stars 2.
I'm going to pretend that I didn't just hear that. Anyways, Donald, you got to understand that there's more to the game than being dominant in the competitions. Although Casey was extremely talented in that regard, she was simply just good average in both the social and strategic game. Tyler was the one who directed all the strategic decisions throughout the season, and when we consider the social game, Casey did well when it came to players in her own alliance. But to the players outside of level 6 that weren't named Bailey, she didn't really do that much.
Yeah, and you can't forget that a lot of her jury votes were very circumstantial. Rockstar was never voting for Tyler. Sam's vote was based on who she thought needed the money more. Fessy voted for Casey because Casey won the veto that sent him home. And who knows Scotty's reasoning for voting the way he did. None of this is to discredit Casey too much because she's proven outside of Big Brother to be one of the most consistent performers of all time in these social strategy games. But in this specific game of BB20, I feel that Casey's game sizes up to be slightly lackluster.
Casey isn't a bad player, but I feel that all the winners left on the board played a bit more urgently than Casey did, and they didn't need to win every veto of the season in order to dictate their path to the end. If we were looking at the list of all BB winners, then maybe Casey would be higher, but in terms of this list, I think I have to put her in the C tier.
Fine, but I'm changing the tier name to B-, because C tier sounds way too low for a player that dictated the physical game to the degree that she did.
I think that's a pretty fair compromise. Okay, moving along, I think we have a player very similar to Casey, but one that many might disagree with, and that's Xavier.
Oof, this is a tough one. I know that Joe over here is probably foaming at the mouth to sing his praises to Xavier, but in actuality, Xavier's win was just a self-fulfilling prophecy. While we do have to give Xavier credit for being a part of the season's dominant alliance, and then also being the best positioned player in said alliance, his win equity came from other players, just assuming that he was a threat to win. Players like Claire and Derek X would constantly say that if X made it to the end that he would win, and because they said that, the other players started to believe it. This then just gave Xavier massive win equity seemingly out of nowhere, and because he was positioned so well inside the cookout, once it got down to the final 6, Xavier was easily able to coast into the finale and win over Derek F.
First of all, screw you, Trump. Second of all, I think you're underestimating Xavier's game potential overall. While he may have gotten fortunate in the sense that he was just gifted all this win equity, he still had to make it to the final 2, and he did that through an expertly balanced style of gameplay. He won 3 clutch vetoes as well as the last 2 HOHs to dictate his own path to the end. He perfectly played into Kylan's game philosophy in order to push himself further into the game until he decided that it was time to get rid of Kylan. And he did a phenomenal job of winning over Azza at the final 3 to the point where she knew that she would lose sitting next to him in the final 2. Yet she still was going to bring him there over the easy win against Derek F.
You know, maybe I was underselling Xavier's game a little bit, but I don't know if it is enough to move him any higher. Maybe we can squeeze him into the B tier, but for now I think this spot is good.
Yeah, I plan on going into many battles tonight, and this is one that I can pass on, so Sleepy Joe, you can get your way on this one, but watch your back from now on.
I simply just said my piece. I have no idea where this hostility is coming from.
Okay, let's just move on before things get more heated. I already have an idea of who the next player is going to be, so to just get the annoying shit out of the way, you can start Donald.
Yeah, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this take, but what else is new? Taylor is the worst winner on here, and the fact that you have 3 other winners ranked below her is fucking abysmal. She was going to get voted out the first week and then got lucky week after week after week before stumbling into the finale, where she somehow charmed the jury into making the wrong decision and awarding her the win. Everyone overrates her simply because she's America's favorite house guest, and I'm sick of having my voice be silenced by the media. Taylor's win is fake news. Monty was robbed.
Now hold on, Trump, that's simply not fair. Taylor was most likely going to survive week 1 anyways due to the backstage twist. She was hella resilient all season long, and I know an episode watcher such as yourself would miss out on a lot of key strategic decisions that Taylor made in order to further her game, specifically at the final 7 when she switched the next target from herself over to Michael.
Fuck you, Joe. You know that I'm a feedster. While Taylor may have some solid qualities, I just can't get past the fact that she was going to get voted out week 1. Obama, please back me up here.
Sorry, Donald, but I'm with Joe on this one. The fact that Taylor was able to win Monty over from Turner when Turner was an easy beat in the end, combined with Taylor's incredible final 2 performance, it's more than enough for me to have her in B tier.
Yeah, suck on that, Donald.
My God, Sleepy Joe. First you rigged the election, and now you're rigging this list. I hope you know when I win presidency again, the first thing I'm doing is vetoing your ass from future tier lists.
Fucking try me, bitch. I'll beat your ass again and then throw you in prison for all of your god-awful takes. Taylor overcame more than any winner before her, and it was the most beautiful Cinderella story that Big Brother has ever produced. After unfairly starting the game off completely isolated, she maneuvered herself into positions that would give her the best chance at survival in the coming weeks, even when it looked like all hope was lost. And all of this happened after she overcame the awful treatment that the other house guests threw at her, specifically Daniel. Speaking of which, based on the way that you're talking, Donald, I'm sure that you're a big Daniel fan.
Nah, fuck that guy. You may think low of me, Sleepy Joe, but that's a bit too far, even for your standards.
You're right, Donald. I'm sorry about that. Sometimes I let the heat of the conversation get me carried away.
It's all right, Joe. I understand. I, too, can let the heat get to me. You bring up some good points about Taylor's game that I didn't consider. And even though her first HOH reign was quite sloppy, she did display a level of resiliency that I've seldom seen inside the Big Brother house, and I can give her credit for that.
Wow, okay, that took an unexpected turn for the better. On that note, Joe, why don't you kick us off on the next one?
Okay, thanks, Barry.
Please don't call me that.
Sorry, Barack. Next up, I think we can pretty easily put Jackson here. Not much to discuss on that one.
Oh my God, you gotta be fucking kidding me with this, Sleepy Joe. Jackson Michie is one of the greatest and most dominant winners we've ever seen. He's a model citizen and someone I'd be proud to vote for in the end. In some ways, he even reminds me of myself.
Yeah, Donald, I don't think that's the compliment you think it is.
Fuck you, Sleepy Joe. Why don't you go take a nap and let the big boys handle this one?
Yeah, sorry, Joe, but I'm kind of on the Trump train with this one. Well, none of that model citizen BS, but Jackson is a very dominant winner. He used his competition wins to not just get rid of players that weren't going to work with him, but he also used them to build trust with Cliff and Nicole, which proved to be monumental for him and Holly, as Cliff and Nicole had all the power at both Final 6 and Final 5. Yet they targeted Tommy and Christy as opposed to Jackson and Holly, due to Jackson continuously keeping them safe previously. You may think he's an asshole, but he definitely deserves a little bit of game respect.
Yeah, and don't forget how he scored both Kat and Holly. That definitely should put him in at least A tier, if not S tier.
Donald, you're losing me here.
All right, although I disagree with you here, I don't feel like arguing because I am starting to get a little tired. But Donald, I swear to God, if you make one more Sleepy Joe joke, I'm going to overrule every decision you make.
Okay, fine. Let's just move Jackson up to A and we can move on before Not Sleepy Joe changes his mind.
Oh my God, please just start the next one.
All right, next one was a little tough for me, but I think this is a good place to put Ian.
Donald, that's not Ian, that's Steve.
Yes, Sleepy Joe, I'm not a fucking idiot. I was making a joke, but I forgot how easily those things can go over your head.
Steve is a really interesting one because you really need to dissect his game in order to appreciate the small nuances that led to his eventual win. So many people think that Steve simply won a coin flip over Vanessa and won because of that, but there was so much more to his game that even got him to that point where he was positioned to have a 50-50 shot at winning the game. That's better odds than most players can even dream of having.
Yeah, people seem to forget that Steve was always in a position where he would survive the block. His positioning is severely underrated, and even though he tried to come across as a weak player, he won 4 HOHs and 2 vetoes, which is very impressive.
Okay, let's slow our rolls here. I think Steve is a fine winner, but let's not over-exaggerate things. Steve's turning point in the game that led to him securing his endgame position was when he won the double eviction HOH, and he did it on fucking accident. He wanted to throw it, which in my opinion is a pretty big misread on the situation. Plus, don't forget that he somehow accidentally won another HOH at the Final 4 when he wrote down the wrong number that ended up giving him the win. I think Steve is a good player, but some of his best moments in the game came due to him accidentally messing up. You wouldn't see me messing up those questions, and in turn I would have fucking lost, which shows you how dumb this game is and how much luck you need in order to win.
Okay, we're getting a little sidetracked here. I think every winner needs a bit of luck on their side in order to win. And while Steve may have had more visible moments of luck, I don't think that makes it fair to diminish his win more than others. But for the sake of time, I say we move on. I'll even start us off with the next one, and I feel like it's probably the easiest one yet. I've got Nicole here in the A tier.
Rigged. This is rigged. Nicole winning was rigged. Paul should have won. Nicole is a trash winner. She even gave Sleepy Joe a run for his money for the amount of time she spent napping with Corey before somehow stumbling her way into getting Devon's vote to win $500,000. Paul won more competitions, had to get out of many more sticky situations than Nicole, and they did all of this without watching the show beforehand. When you compare that to Nicole, who was technically on her third try in Big Brother, the conclusion should be obvious. The jury was rigged, just like the election.
Trump, you are without a doubt the worst type of person in this community. It's okay to have our different opinions, but stating that everything is rigged when things don't go your way is beyond annoying. Just because Nicole didn't play a flashy game doesn't mean that her game was not worthy of the win. The amount of behind-the-scenes social maneuvering that Nicole got away with is astounding and something I've never seen before. She went into the final 7 outnumbered 2-5, yet within just a day, she was able to flip Natalie, James, and Michelle over to her side and against Paul and Victor, giving her a 5-2 advantage.
Yeah, and not only that, but right afterwards, she was then somehow able to flip Paul and Victor over to her side to take out James and Natalie. And even after that, she turned on Paul and Victor again, but got Corey to take all the blood for it. The way that she managed to flip back and forth over and over again and find success every single time is more than enough reason for her win to be rightfully earned. We simply outnumber you here, Donald, and you owe it to Joe after forcing Jackson up above Steve.
You know, I hate to say it, but you might have just convinced me. Nobody loves a good flip-flopper more than me. In fact, I might have actually been the highest on Nicole out of any one of us, and I just didn't know it. I'd say thank you for showing me the light, but I actually was the light the whole time. It just took a little nudge for me to see it. So I'm going to instead thank myself for reaching such a good analysis on Nicole's game all on my own.
Donald, I have no fucking idea what you're talking about, but if it means I don't have to hear you talk anymore and we can move on them, I'm all for it.
Never mind. Fuck you, Sleepy Joe. Paul deserved to win.
Jesus Christ, okay? I'm making an executive decision and moving forward.
Actually, Barack is the current president, only I have the power to make executive decisions. Okay, guys, I've decided that we should move on.
Gee, thanks, Joe. Anyways, it looks like we're down to just the 2 hitmen left, and I hope I don't come across as baseless when I say that I totally don't fucking care how we rank them. They're both pretty clearly S tier, but I couldn't care less who's above who.
My God, these two are so boring looking back. It was fine the first time, I guess, but then they had to go and bring Cody back for All-Stars. And all his pre-gaming absolutely ruined the season and almost killed Big Brother for me. And also, it's no coincidence that the absolute worst season of Big Brother came right before the worst presidency of all time. Isn't that right, Sleepy Joe?
Actually, Donald, this season aired start to finish during your presidential tenure, and I take no responsibility for it. Maybe if you actually went through with your promise and made America great again, we could have actually gotten a real all-star season with players like Danielle Reyes and Dr. Will instead of someone like David.
I will die on a fucking hill that David deserved a second shot at the game, and he was by far one of my favorite parts of All-Stars 2.
Guys, this isn't a talk about David. This is a discussion about Cody versus Derek.
I would honestly so much rather talk about David than Derek and Cody.
Yeah, I second that. And as the current president of the United States of America, I'm making an executive decision to replace Cody and Derek with David on this tier list. And Barrick, if you dare try and defy me, I'll send the Secret Service on your ass.
Okay, I'm clearly outmanned here. I guess we can talk about David.
Perfect. As I was saying, Donald, I do agree that David deserved a second chance to play the game. But to have that during an all-star season when he is taking up a slot from someone who actually earned it before is a bit ludicrous to me. And I think David would have fit much better on a non-all-star season as a returnee.
You see, Joe, I think having the dynamic of a metaphorically newbie player on a cast of all-stars is a really fun experiment and has proven to work well in the past. Look at Chicken George in the first All-Stars. He had never played the actual game of Big Brother before, yet he still provided some of the best moments of that season. Remember that Week 3 veto comp? Absolutely historic. That right there is a true American citizen.
I see what you're saying, Donald, but David is no Chicken George. David showed to be kind of a dud player on his return. And the only thing he did was successfully convince zero fucking people that he wasn't the one with the disruptor power in Week 6.
Yeah, and that was some of the best TV from the whole fucking season. You're only helping me out here, Sleepy Joe.
As the voice of reason here, I'm actually going to side with Donald. While yes, I don't think David really earned the title of All-Star, it was a really fun dynamic watching a first-time player navigate the waters of returning figures. He may not have been the greatest player ever, but it's not like there weren't other players on the cast that were wary of the title of All-Star. This was very clearly a bunch of B-list All-Stars, and because of that, I think David fit in just fine.
Yeah, fuck you, Joe. I'm putting David in S tier, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Absolutely fucking not. David is going into D tier, and until he comes back a third time and wins, he's staying there.
Don't you think that's a bit harsh, Joe?
No, Barry, I don't, and I've had it up to here with you two ganging up on me. All I wanted to do was have a nice fun tier list session with my boys. But what has resulted from this can only be described as pure torture. I'm so mad that I'm going to blatantly abuse my power as the current president and make the executive decision to finalize this tier list in the image that I want it to be. So suck on that and consider being a little bit nicer to me next time. Biden out.
Okay, now that Joe's gone, I'm going to move Jackson up to S tier and call it a night. Good night, Obama. I'll see you tomorrow for the Survivor Watch Party.
God, I feel so bad that this is who I left the country with. Let me just move David up to C tier, and with those two jokers gone, I can finally finish this for real. To start, I think I will put Derek up at the top because he did it first, and I'll follow him up with Cody, who arguably played more dominantly than Derek did, but he had a bit more help due to all the outside circumstances, such as pre-existing relationships and pre-gaming. So with that, I think the list is finished. I can't say I'm super happy with how it all turned out, but it'll have to suffice. All right, good night, everyone.